Hey guys, Mike Rom here, Landmark Commercial Realty and Commonwealth Commercial Appraisal Group. I wanted to spend some time today talking about common level ratios, what they are, why they matter to you, and why right now might be a really good time to reconsider what your assessment is and possibly save some money from it. So first, we could talk quickly about what common level ratios are, and essentially it's a trailing indicator of median sale prices in each individual county from the previous year. So for instance, they take the historical trends of median sale prices. They'll take the 2021 median sale price compared to 2020's median sale price, and they'll come up with a ratio for it. So in a rapidly increasing market, for instance, which is what we realized during that time frame, common level ratios will be more volatile. They'll be affected more in rapidly increasing or decreasing markets, which is sort of the point of this video, right? Because as you can see here, and we'll get into exactly why common level ratios matter in a second, but the point being is that these factors have changed somewhat dramatically over the past year or so. Cumberland County, not so much, but what a common level ratio is and why it matters to you is that you take your assessment, which is calculated in a base year. So each assessment and in each county is derived over the course of anywhere from maybe 5 years to as many as 50 years. There hasn't been a countywide reassessment in certain counties in as many as 50 years in Pennsylvania. But for instance, Lancaster just had one a few years ago. Bottom line is the assessments don't change yearly, which is the reason why common level ratios are important, because they more for what it's worth, they basically calculate what market value should be in the interim of a countywide reassessment. So you take your assessed value, you divide it by a common level ratio, and that's your equalized value. That's what we as appraisers compare against market value. All right, well, so how do you figure out what your common level ratio is? Okay, so excuse me, I got something on my screen here. Show you how to do that. So STEB board PA is what I Google. STEB stands for State Tax Equalization Board. Click on common level ratios. Go down to 2021. Because as we mentioned, it's a trailing indicator. So the 2021 sales, and they'll tell you how this is calculated more in depth than what I did. The 2021 sales derive the ratios that are then used between July 1st and June 30th of that fiscal year, so to speak. So these are ratios, right? These are not factors. There are a list of factors that I'll show you how to find as well. Common level ratio, PA. This the PA Department of Revenue has a list of factors which are the reciprocal, for all intents and purposes, of the common level ratios that you saw on the previous page. These are factors. And these are utilized for transfer tax purposes. So technically, if you're talking about trying to develop an equalized value for assessment purposes, this is not the resource that you want to use. You want to use the common level ratios that are developed by the STEB board. Anyways, I think this will all make sense with an example. And so anybody can use this for their own property. There's multiple resources. Basically, I probably should show you how I got to this page. Lancaster County Property Assessment, or York County Property Assessment, or Cumberland County Property Assessment. Most of the counties have similar resources to this, and let me know if you're having trouble finding it. I'll provide some other resources because not all of them do. I'm gonna utilize a house nearby mine as an example. Excuse me. It's kind of distracting. So, all right. So here's the breakdown: land, building, total. Now, land and building don't necessarily matter too much to be broken down here, but we'll do it anyway. 106,800 equals sum. All right, so that's your total assessment. That's not what you compare against market value. You compare that divided by the common level ratio against market value. Because again, the assessment will not change unless there's a county-wide reassessment. That's case law. That's you're not allowed to individually reassess properties, and so because you're not able to do that, and because it's incredibly expensive for a county to undertake a county-wide reassessment, the common level ratios are what, again, for lack of a better word, equalize the assessment to market value, to theoretical market value. So from there, we could also calculate our millage rate, or we could also calculate our annual taxes, I'm sorry. And our annual taxes are found by millage rates. So to find millage rates, I would go Lancaster County millage rate. All right. So this property is in Lancaster City. Most of you will probably know what county or what municipality your property is in. If you don't, you can go to this page and find out what's in Lancaster City. There's other ways to find out that as well. But anyways, then you come up to this chart. The first three columns will total the fourth column here on the far right. I already have that in here. So annual tax liability is calculated by taking the assessment, not the equalized value, but the assessment times mills divided by 1,000. As mills implies, you have to divide it by 1,000. Anyways, the annual tax liability is $5,000. So the point of this video is try to provide you with the tools to be able to figure out whether or not it's worth challenging your property taxes. Now, it's important to note that you're not actually appealing your taxes per se. You're appealing your assessment, which has an influence on your taxes, obviously. But for instance, I wouldn't go to the board and say, well, $5,000 is too high. That's not an argument that they will hear, and it's not the point of what they serve. So say, for instance, your property value is worth $250,000. Well, it wouldn't really make sense to appeal because your equalized value, which is the same thing as market value, is market value for tax purposes, not market value for appraisal purposes. Is about $60,000 below what it would actually sell for in the open market. However, if your property value is worth $150,000, you're going to be overassessed by $40,000. So you can take this a step further and say times that you're overpaying your annual property tax by about $1,650 a year, simply because you're being overassessed. Now, this does not just apply to residential property. In fact, it's probably way more common in commercial, because commercial property values, especially over the past year, have not realized as much growth as residential property values have, and just due to the amount of sales in any given county at any given point in time, the residential sales have an overwhelming influence on how these factors are calculated or how these ratios are calculated. So, um, and obviously I work in the commercial space as well. So, I've seen, excuse me, I've seen this scenario affect commercial properties much more than residential in most cases. Um, Bottom line is, I want to provide some resources today to you guys to be able to figure out, how to calculate your property taxes, how to assess whether or not it's worth undertaking an appeal. I'd also recommend, and here's the thing, like I also offer these services, but there are other resources out there, depending on the difficulty of the assignment. Paul Morcom out of McNeese, Wallace, and Nurek is somebody that I would recommend as somebody that specializes in this. Um, just to simply be able to give some advice as to whether or not an appeal might be warranted is certainly something that we can do. Once you start getting into the technicalities of how to present an argument and whether or not it might go other levels in the appeal process, that's when lawyers might need to get involved. But bottom line is, hopefully this provided some value to you in the meantime. I will note that Lancaster and Dauphin, their submission deadline for an appeal is August 1st. Cumberland and York, their submission deadline is September 1st. I apologize that I didn't get this out earlier. However, the common level ratios, they do only just come out July 1st of every year, so it's difficult to kind of get your eggs in a row for submitting an appeal with the new knowledge that you found, as recently as 2 or 3 weeks ago. So anyways, bottom line is, hopefully this is beneficial to a few of you out there. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.